So I can't remember what I was saying. But
Okay, you were saying where we could buy this.
okay, yeah. Basically, when I got a hint that Miron Glass is actually something that's going to actually benefit me, what I started doing is I started looking online for them, and I found a ton of places in the States. I mean, that's just the States, right? You can find tons of stuff. The only place in Canada that I was able to find was yourwatermatters.com. It's a place out of Vancouver, and basically, when you go to the first website, you'll see water containers, and it'll list, several different water containers, and then, down towards, you'll see Miron Glass, M-I-R-O-N, Miron or Miron, whatever you want to say it. And basically, the bottle itself, this is 1 liter. It came with a plastic screw cap, which I immediately discarded and replaced it with cork, because I don't want plastic anywhere near this thing. Even the cap,
can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I'm just learning about why I should use cork in the top of those bottles I'm getting tomorrow.
Basically, you want to use cork because you're going to get a bit of an air exchange in the atmosphere in the water, and you don't want it sealed. You don't want it sealed. You want a little bit, just a little bit, because the cork allows it to breathe. Same reason you use it for a bottle of wine.
Gotcha.
Is it enables the water to breathe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So this is the magic thing. So all of the glass bottles we have, they're never sealed. They're only cork, real cork. So this is a natural substance. This is made from a tree of a bark. I mean, the inner bark of a tree, right?
But it's porous, so it can breathe. Right? That's cool. So winemakers can really get that.
Totally, yeah. Like, I mean, basically, if you want to know how to treat water, you treat it like it would be a $1,000 bottle of wine. And you wouldn't expose a $1,000 bottle of wine in a plastic bottle out on your picnic table in the sun, beating down on it without, a cork or a container, you know what I mean?
Yes,
and so you treat water exactly like you would treat a $1,000 bottle of wine or a very expensive
Very
bottle
cool,
of wine.
very cool.
This is what it's all about, right? So basically, yourwatermatters.com is a great source out of Vancouver that you can get this 1 liter Miron glass bottle. It cost me $20 for the bottle, $13 for shipping, and like $4 for tax or something like that. So basically, I was looking at about, I don't know, $37 or something landed cost to Ontario. It's worth every penny. It's worth every penny. I want to get a little container so when I'm transporting it around, I'm not actually, it's a very heavy, thick glass. Like, you wouldn't believe how heavy this glass is. So, but yeah, I mean, it's worth it. You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to have an immediate alchemy effect by just keeping it in here for a few minutes or a few seconds, obviously. But, what I do is, I used to use a glass amber bottle, like a dark brown, like a beer
Those are very
bottle,
common,
right?
yep.
And that's okay, you know what I mean? But it only blocks 40% of visible light, okay? So you got 60% of visible light coming in there doing all sorts of things that you don't want it to do. And so that's not good. That's not good at all. It's better than clear, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not as good as this. This is a whole nother, this is the cat's ass of water containers.
So for people that are going out looking for springs, they're people that take water seriously and would probably consider, bottling it seriously as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because this is, this is a sacred thing that we're doing, right? And basically, you get into this type of glass, you're getting into some really, really, really ancient wisdom type of things. Because actually I've been consistently shielding my water from light in every way, shape, and form. And now to actually put it out in my backyard for 2 hours before I drink it is just amazing. And that's a weird concept for me to actually start doing now, but I do it now because I know, that the non-visible light that's actually coming through this bottle is actually going to be helping me out, helping with the water, and basically making my blood that much more better, usable, pure, whatever you want to call it. It just, it's definitely worth that much.
How long have you been using it now? Sorry.
Oh man, I've had it for probably less than 2 weeks now. But the difference was noticeable, right in the first day.
Very cool.
Very first day. So, yeah. So I mean, that's what I do, right? Like I'm taking it to the extreme.
Yeah.
Because I know the difference. And
let's go over the pH again real quick to make sure we got it on your video camera as well. Because we did switch cameras. You'll probably notice the pixel difference, or I don't know if you can, because this is shooting HD too, right?
It does shoot HD, but I don't know if it's a real HD or a pretend HD.
But all cameras shoot different, so that's why you're going to notice a bit of a change on the camera. We ran out of memory on the other one. So.
Sure. Okay, so basically what's happening is, if you want, you can go into macro mode if you want.
Yeah.
If it helps.
It does.
Then, okay, so basically the temperature of this water today is 7.3 degrees Celsius. That's very, very cold. By the way, the Puslinch spring we measured today at 6.9 degrees. Okay, so a little comparison. The TDS of Puslinch, 347, TDS of Killeen, 294, pH of Puslinch, 643, and this is 634, or 632, 631, 63, whatever. And the temperature is 6.9 Puslinch and 7.3. And so here, basically you have a TDS meter. Okay, it's gotten up to 307 now.
Whoops, I need some more light on this
sure,
one.
go ahead. But basically, hold on, let me reset this guy.
Okay,
what happens is when you leave it in there.
Oh, we gotta reset it?
This one you gotta reset it once in a while. See, now it's up there. So 296, like 296, 281, 300, that's the range of this guy. And then 6.32 is the pH. So that's an acidic water. So anytime, generally speaking, an acidic water is going to be more. Do you need to switch it?
Yes, please. Yeah. Explain that like you explained it to me, and then other people can understand.
Basically, with the pH meter, this is what I don't like. This is what I don't like about the thing is about the Cassar artesian well is it's the closest spring to me. It's 20 minutes from my place, but it's an alkaline water, highly alkaline water. Okay, and you got to remember with pH, everything's exponential. You know what I mean? So 7.0 is okay. Say you're doing 7.0. That's a read. That's what distilled water is based on. So a distilled water 7.0. Now once you get up to 8, now you got to remember that's exponential. That's 10 times more alkaline than 7.0, whereas 6 would be 10 times more acidic than 7.0. So because it's not a linear scale, it's an exponential scale, right? And so that's what's happening. Or actually, it's an exponential logarithm. I can't remember the math. But anyways, all I know is 7.0, you go up, that's 10 times more alkaline. You go down to 6 from 7.0, that's 10 times more acidic. And so these numbers, they mean something, right? And generally speaking, and this is not 100% bulletproof, but generally speaking, an alkaline water is going to be more hydrating to you than an acidic water is going to be more hydrating to you than an alkaline water, because the acidic water is typically has more hydrogen in there. It's when you get an acidic water, it's actually a measurement, because you got to remember pH is potential of hydrogen. Potential of hydrogen. That's what pH stands for. So when you're coming to a spring, you're looking for hydrogen because you want to get hydrated. Hydrogen. Generator, hydro generator. That's what it's talking about. We're talking about hydrogen. This is what's in living spring water that makes it different than tap water. That makes it different than distilled water. There's living hydrogen in there, and typically that would be acidic. That's what makes Kearney the #1 spring in Ontario that I know of, within a reasonable driving distance. Novar is great. Horner Road is great. These are all real acidic natural springs. Horner Road is like 4.7. Like, that's nuts. I've never seen that. Kearney is 5.7, in that range. Novar is about the same. But I mean, you got to get up north, right? But all the greatest springs in the world are acidic. Okay, so you get into this whole alkaline water and alkalinity and all this stuff and this acid. Yeah, you need a balance. But I'm telling you, all the best springs that we know of are acidic. That tells you something. That kind of blows out this pH miracle thing. I'm not saying there's no benefits of that pH miracle or highly alkalizing lifestyle. I mean, if you look at something like cancer, it needs to live in acid. It needs to live in a non-oxygen environment. It needs to live in an acidic environment. That's cancer. So yeah, you can't say everything about acid is good. Obviously, it's not. But when it comes to collecting spring water, you're looking for living hydrogen. And if you're looking for living hydrogen, you're going to find it at an acidic natural spring. That's just the way it goes,
Great. What about the next device here?
Oh, this TDS?
TDS?
Okay, so total dissolved solids. That's going to give you an idea of. Okay, this is 281, 300 where we're at today. So this is going to give you an idea of the mineral ions that are actually present. Now, if you wanted to visually see it, grab a liter of this water, boil off the water until the last drop is gone, and you will visually see what's left mineral-wise, what the inorganic minerals that are dissolved in here once you evaporate the water out, the minerals don't leave with the water. The water just leaves by itself. What's left behind is the calcium, the magnesium, the salt. All the minerals will stay behind, and you can actually see that. So when you go to the Ancaster Spring and you boil away a liter of water, you'll see a nice chalky white residue. Here you'll see some residue too, and most likely it'll be white, but remember the pH is acidic, so it's going to be a different, the minerals are going to be acidic minerals like phosphorus, as opposed to alkaline minerals like calcium and magnesium and all that sort of stuff. Now when you go to the Kearney Spring, boil away that water, and I guarantee you will see virtually nothing there. I've done it millions of times. I've done it all, you know. I didn't always have meters, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So, you know, just to get an idea, that's what we would do, and that's what they call caveman technology. A caveman could get, you know, whatever, a rock, boil away, you know, like a rock thing, and boil away the water and see what's actually left. You know what I mean? This is what they call caveman technology. You don't really need meters and stuff, but that will show you exactly what's going on, right? Very cool. That's exactly what's going on. And basically, the whole idea is, you want to, when you're looking for a spring, you want to look at, when you're looking for a good spring source, you want to look for a spring source just like Kearney. Low TDS. TDS is 23. Acidic pH. The pH is 5.7, 5.6 in that range, and the temperature as cold as possible. You know, we've measured the Kearney water at 4.4 degrees Celsius, which is unheard of, because water, when it comes to if we were to actually stick our temperature into the ground at the bottom of that aquifer, we'd find that water is sitting at the perfect density water temperature, which is 4.0 degrees Celsius, and that's the anomaly point. That's where water is its most dense. And so the closer you are to 4.4 degrees, the closer the temperature of water is to 4.0 degrees Celsius, the closer you are to the source of that aquifer, right? Now, that's important. That's really, really important. And one of the biggest things is when you see, you know, water spouting out of the ground, the first thing you want to do is you want to touch it. If it's unusually cold, that's a great indication that it's actually spring water. Because if it's a seepage spring or, you know, a man-made artesian well, okay, this is a bit different because this is pretty deep. It's just not going to be that cold. I mean, this is pretty cold. And you know, what's cold? Cold is 4.4 degrees Celsius. When I was in Havelock a few weekends ago, I was amazed. The water was 5.2 degrees Celsius on a very hot day in March. Very hot day. And basically, what was happening is my hands were frozen. You could not keep them in there. That's how cold we're talking about. I don't know if you know how cold 5.2 degrees is, but it's cold. And literally, my hands were like frozen solid. Okay, that's spring water. That's what spring water is all about. Havelock is very impressive. If you ever get a chance.
Do you drink it you don't drink it that cold, or do you let it warm up a bit?
Well, actually, yeah, I drink it very close because my fridge, I keep my spring water in my little fruit cellar, and it's as cold as it can get. But really, I put them in 2 4-liter bottles, and I keep them in the fridge, and they're very close to 4.0 degrees Celsius when I drink it in the morning. So like, you know, I start off my morning with, you know, drinking a liter of spring water on an empty stomach. That's how I hydrate myself. And then sure, I'll drink another 2 or 3 liters, another liter or 2 down the road during the day. But basically that first liter, upon rising on an empty stomach, this is how you want to do. This is your breakfast. You're having breakfast for water. And then when you drink that liter of water in the morning, basically what happens is you really want to wait till half an hour after that last drop has been consumed, and just let it do its thing. You know what I mean? Keep it clean. You know, this is going to be like really hydrating for you, really flushing, because when you wake up in the morning, you've just been essentially fasting, sleeping for 8 hours. You're breathing out. Now, when you notice in the winter, when you breathe out, you see the vapor. You see how much water you're losing. Well, guess what? That happens every single season. You don't see it in the summer. You don't see it in the fall. You don't see it in the spring. You only see it in the winter. But that amount of water, that amount of vapor that you're losing by exhaling is coming out all year round.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
So here you are sleeping, breathing out for 8 hours, right? You've lost a lot of water. You've lost a lot of water. So when you wake up in the morning, you're at your most dehydrated state, but you're at the most perfect state to rehydrate, because now your stomach is hopefully empty, and you can start pounding it back, because water and food are not the same thing. They kind of interfere with each other. So when you drink water first thing in the morning on an empty stomach, you are at your most dehydrated state, but you are your most perfect state to rehydrate, because your stomach is empty and you can absorb it. And that's the trick. It's not so much how much water you're drinking, it's how you're drinking it and when you're drinking it. So if you start doing stuff like that, that's a whole nother level of using the spring water. It's one thing to come to a spring and use glass bottles and shield it from light, warmth, and oxygen, but it's another thing to know how to use it. And that's really what it's all about, right? And this is something you learn. Like you just, it's not like, boom, okay, I'm drinking spring water and I know everything there is. Nobody knows everything there is to know. You just know how to use it properly. And,
that does come from experience.
Yeah. Now, typically, what's going to happen is a typical alkaline water, if you're drinking that with meal, that's going to interfere, because that's going to dilute. If you're drinking alkaline water like Ancaster, I wouldn't drink that with meals, because your stomach is highly acidic, and it needs to be, and here you are pounding back alkaline water. So what's going to happen is it's going to screw up your whole digestive system, kind of thing, because your stomach's going to have to compensate for that alkalinity coming through in the form of water. Where if you drink, you can help your digestion by drinking acidic water, and that'll actually help the acidity. That hydrogen will actually help in the digestion process. So like Perrier was kind of famous in the 70s for, people kind of knew that, the carbonated water, the Perrier, that kind of actually did something for people, and they realized, hey, this is helping me with digestion. And they're right, because it's an acidic, and that the acidic sort of compounds that were involved in that water, they did help with digestion. So that's another cool thing to learn about, But like I said, we're always learning and just doing the best you can. But you got to realize that water is number one. No matter how well you eat, no matter how well you exercise, guess what? In the end of the day, you're not mostly, and I love superfoods. I live on superfoods. Bee pollen, raw cacao, honey, goji berries, chaga mushroom. Check it out. Thank you, sir.
Fresh pick this morning.
Like, how awesome is that? So basically, long story short, is no matter how well you eat and no matter how many superfoods you eat, at the end of the day, you are not mostly goji berries, or you're not mostly cacao, you're not mostly ravioli, you're not mostly lasagna, you're not mostly bison meat, you're not mostly grass-fed organic Jersey cows.
You're mostly water.
You're mostly water. So guess what's number one? Water. It's all about the water. But you look at yourself, you look at your solid being, and you don't realize that. I don't feel like mostly water, but hey, your skin is mostly water, your brain is mostly water, your eyes are mostly water, your blood is mostly water. This is what it's all about. When you start building your blood out of spring water, you got 4 liters of blood. 4 liters of blood. You come here with 23 liters, 23-liter glass bottle, you start sucking that back over the week, tell me what your blood is going to do. You know what I mean? It's actually going to come to life for the first time. If I've known people that, 32 years, they've never had a drop of spring water in their life.
I heard I think an analogy, I don't know if it was from David Wolfe, but I think you were in it, but somebody compared it to like a fish tank. Was that in that video?
Daniel Vitalis, yeah.
Oh, was that Daniel Vitalis? Okay.
Basically, his analogy was, look, if you know anything about aquariums, okay, well, the fish in that aquarium is basically, those are equivalent to our cells. You can use the best fish food on planet Earth. If that water is shit, those fish are toast. Okay, that's all there is to it. Now, in our human body, we're much like an aquarium. Daniel Vitalis says, think of the fish. Think that as like our cells. Like our cells in our body are like a fish in a fish tank. And so, like, if your water is toast, guess what? Your cells aren't going to be happy. Your cells are mostly water.
No matter how much good food you feed the fish.
And I'm not saying go to spring water, consume spring water and go eat McDonald's, you'll be fine. You could probably get away with it a lot better, obviously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, food is up here, water is up here. And then, you get into oxygen and stuff like that. That's a little bit different. But, essentially, I was always led to believe that oxygen is the most important part of air. And in fact, is actually, I believe, nitrogen, if I'm not mistaken. That's actually what mostly is in the air. So we kind of learned, we kind of been taught a few falsities.
Yeah, I think we're at a very exciting time for correcting those things that you're bringing up now. That I was brought up to believe a lot of these things that you're saying false.
We have to unlearn everything that we've quote unquote learned, because the people that taught us didn't always have our best interests in mind. In
That's
fact, they
right.
never did. All they really had, it's different. If your parents, okay, let's talk about this for a second. I'm proud. I'm proud of my parents. My parents are Italian immigrants. My dad came over in 57. My mom came over in 64 when they were about 16, 17. They grew up in a small mountain village in the Abruzzo region. You talk about the best water on earth. That's where it is, in the high mountain areas of Abruzzo. The parents were the village where my parents are from, it's called Gagliano Aterno. And my dad came over in 57, around 16. My mom 64, 16-ish. Can you imagine? That's all the water they had was spring-fed mountain water all their life. They come off the boat, 57. I could just imagine my dad's face when he came into Hamilton and drank some tap water out of Lake Ontario. He must have lost his mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And actually, my mom the same thing. So basically, me being born here in 67. I look at myself as the first tap water generation in my lineage.
Yeah.
Because, I tell you, my parents, for the first 16, 17 years of life, they had nothing but mountain spring water, the best. My grandparents, same thing. My great-grandparents, same thing. Okay, go back. There was no tap water, okay? So here comes me, born in 67. I am the first tap water generation in my lineage. That's the way it works. And we're trying to correct that, My first spring water, my dad used to bring me to springs when I was a kid. I didn't understand it. It was just a freaky thing for me to see, for me to go out and, get spring water with my dad. And basically, because there was a bit of a language barrier, he didn't speak English very well, and I didn't speak Italian very well at that age. So all he would say to me was, we're going to get water. Why? Because it's good water. You know what I mean? But there was no explanation. So even as a kid going up to, 6, 7 years old, going up to the Wasaga Beach area where we go to Midland and Elmvale. We pass through Elmvale to get to Bomb Beach and Wasaga Beach. We drive through Elmvale, and every single time, faithfully, we'd stop at the spring, and my dad and my uncle would fill up, and it's just like, what is this? I don't get this. What are you doing? And they would just it would be like, in fact, it became very obvious that we were actually really going there, for a vacation, but really we were going there to get some water, you know what I mean?
That's awesome.
It's crazy. But I'll tell you something. I've been to Italy 3 times. Once in 74, I was 6 turning 7. Once in 84, when I was 16 turning 17. And we returned just recently in 2009 for 2 weeks. Now in 74 and 84, we would stay the whole summer. So the whole month of July and the whole month of August is what we do. And we would spend the majority of that time in this little mountain village called Gagliano Aterno. I don't remember too much when I was 6 turning 7 and 74, but I'll tell you something. When I was in 84, when I was 16 turning 17, that was my first epiphany, or I realized that at that point that, not all water is created equal. I didn't understand it, but I can tell you one thing for sure is in 84, when I started drinking the spring water out of the main fountain, Gagliano, underneath the Castello, it's called Fontana della Valle or something like that. It was actually built. This fountain was built in 1300s, in the Middle Ages, in the what's that period of time called? Medieval times. It was a medieval fountain built in the 1343 or 1334 or something like that. And basically, what they did is, up higher in the mountains, there's a spot where the actual source is. They call that canale. That's where the water comes from, and they piped it down to the main village, and it started coming out. Well, long story short, I started drinking this water in July and August of 1984 because there really is nothing else to drink. And within a short period of time, I realized that my body could not get enough of this water, no matter how much I drank.
So it was like a magnet.
It would keep coming, it would keep sending me back, and next thing you know, I'm hanging there all day, drinking. And basically what was happening is I didn't understand this at the time. When I came back in 84, talking to my friends, 16, 17 years old, I'm like, the water in Italy is amazing. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know, it was just cold, whatever. I couldn't really explain it. But I realized now what was happening is after 16, 17 years of drinking Ontario dead tap water from these Great Lakes, which are now known as the Great Sewer, which is basically recycled toilet water. That's all it is.
Yep.
Whatever you flush goes out to that lake and then comes back in through your tap. That's a closed system. That's recycled toilet water. That's what tap water is. So after 16, 17 years of drinking that stuff, here I find myself in 84 in Italy drinking the best water in the world, and my body's responding very, very well. And essentially what was happening is I was experiencing hydration for the first time in my life.
Wow.
And that's actually profound. To actually experience hydration, like I'm 16, 17 years old drinking this water. Can you imagine, someone in the 50s or 60s or 70s drinking this water for the first time in their life? Their body would freak. And my body freaked out in 84. And, here we are, like 29 years later, drinking this stuff. And it's just like,
I think that's kind of how I feel about superfood right now, is I'm getting that awakening from it. So I'm really excited to get on the spring water, like you're explaining that's going to take me to another level too.
Yeah, it's kind of, this stuff is kind of hard to explain, and you can't really put it down on paper.
Yeah.
When you go through the experience of feeling hydration, real hydration for the first time, and feeling nutrition for the first time, real nutrition. I'm not talking,
I know. I was
vitamin
raised
C from Shoppers Drug Mart. I'm talking vitamin C from cacao. I'm talking real magnesium and crazy doses, like goji berries. Like, what's going on with that? You can't explain to people what you go through, what your mind goes through, what your blood goes through, what your body goes through, what your thoughts go through, your brain, your body responds. You could be like me. You could grow up on the worst food and worst water ever, and basically, after 40 and a half years, and start turning things around, and your body within days and weeks can actually start rebuilding itself properly. And then here we are. I didn't really make a healthy move until April 7th, 2008. That's the first day I ever walked into goodness me, consciously trying to possibly do intentionally something positive for my health. It was April 7th, 2008. I remember I walked out with goji berry. No, sorry. The first time I walked out with coconut oil, raw apple cider vinegar, digestive enzymes, and the Vital Greens super green thing from Naka Herbs. Those are the 4 things I started with. I didn't really know how to use them. I just started pounding them down.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing too.
Pain.
Yeah.
In my kitchen, I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
Just pounding back coconut oil, sucking back raw apple cider vinegar, digestive enzymes, and this Vital Greens Naka Herbs thing. That was great. The next day I walked in after discovering David Wolfe and looking. Next time I walked out with goji berries, cacao, coconut oil again, and some other, I can't remember what had happened the second time, but it was definitely cacao on the second trip and goji berries on the second trip, and it was like, okay, this is a little bit
It's
more
funny
doable,
that
you know what I mean?
water took you there, and then the food's taken me back to water.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll be honest with you, this was, in April of 2008, when I started changing my diet to something that actually made sense nutritionally. I was off tap water at that stage, and I was drinking, quote unquote spring water in plastic bottles, like bottled water, because I really didn't know the difference. I didn't know there was a difference. Not until probably September of 2008, later on that year, that I tuned into Daniel Vitalis, and he's like, no, you got to drink from springs. This is where it's all about. And then it was just like one thing led to another. And then eventually, after knowing that, then I started to realize what happened to me in 84 in Italy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's really, other than the odd sporadic time that we'd be going with my parents or up in Palm Beach or whatever, that would be the only time really that I'd be, getting the spring water was that time in 84. So it kind of all made sense at that point. And just like, oh, that's what happened to me in 1984.
Yeah.
I was drinking natural spring water. My body's freaking out. It's experiencing hydration for the first time. And it's basically going through a really, really crazy process of, getting as much as it can, because it doesn't know when it's, oh my God, when's the next time you're going to get this water? So my body kind of forced me to go back there daily for the 2 months that we spent in it. So
very, very cool.
So so long story short, August 7th, 2008 was the first time I positively did something positive for my health intentionally. But we didn't actually start drinking spring water, actually pouring out spring water until February of 2009. February 2009 was the first time that, we found a local spring. And it was actually an artesian well in Ancaster, and we started drinking it. And since that day, we haven't really consumed anything but exclusively water that we've gathered from the earth, whether it be artesian well water or natural spring water or whatever, and we're constantly looking for it. This is amazing. The spring right now is like less than an hour, 40 minutes from my house. I can't believe 4 years of actively looking, that, this has been under our nose the whole time. The whole time. I don't understand.
I like how you told me to ask around, because at that, at the push lunch one, right at the dirt road that I went down, which was, I could have walked down to the spring by there. There was an older gentleman who was pulling in a truck, and I told him to roll down his window, because I figured this guy's got to know. He's an old timer.
He's an old guy.
He's coming up this dirt road. He's got to know. So I asked him, "Do you know there's a spring well around?" "No, don't know." And he was right beside it. And probably lived in the area.
That's amazing. But the Push Lunch Spring has some crazy history. A lot of my uncles and stuff that came from Gagliano, like on my mom's side, my dad's side, they won't drink the Ancaster artesian well water because they know inherently that that just doesn't meet their standards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they would come to Push Lunch and drink this water. They wouldn't. I couldn't pay them to go drink the Ancaster water. I'm not dissing it. I'm just saying that when you grow up on good water.
Once you've had the best,
it's hard to start drinking artesian well water when you're drinking mountain spring water in the high mountains of Italy. Like it's hard to go back, right? And so when I talk to some of my uncles, they just laugh at the Ancaster water. They make fun of it, but they'll come to Push Lunch and they'll drink as much as they can. Or they're, my one uncle actually has a hunting camp in Magnetawan, which is west of Berks Falls. That's where the Horner Road Spring is, and he drinks that by gallons and gallons and brings it back for me. So there's a lot to learn about this stuff, but basically what it comes down to is basically you got to understand the importance of water. Water could be extremely beneficial to you if you get the right kind and use it properly, or it could be extremely detrimental to you if you use the wrong types. Don't kid yourself. Tap water is the worst thing ever, period. Reverse osmosis is actually worse, probably in some areas, because as bad as tap water is, it's not an aggressive detergent like reverse osmosis is, and distilled water. Reverse osmosis and distilled water are basically in one of the same thing. Distilled water is basically a distillation process. Reverse osmosis is a mechanical version of distilling water, because it's being pushed through these incredibly thin membrane filters and basically under a lot of pressure, and essentially it comes out, the net effect is very similar to distilled water. So that's basically my warning. Tap water is pretty amazingly bad for you. I think actually reverse osmosis has some aspects that are actually worse than tap water. So basically, if you use the plant analogy, if you're using tap water in plant and reverse osmosis on a plant and distilled water, the reverse osmosis plant will die first. The tap water is pretty dead, but it'll keep your plant alive faster than longer than reverse osmosis water. Distilled water will keep it alive longer than tap water, but it too is still a dead water, and that's all there is to it. I mean, if you look around me, like there's some major trees happening here. You see the cedars. Every time you go to a spring and stuff like this forest is so dense. This is life-giving water. Same thing in Push Lunch. Very similar setup to Push Lunch, actually, as far as terrain and stuff like this. This type of cedar, I think it's called a Eastern white cedar, if I'm not mistaken. You see these everywhere on springs.
Yeah, you do.
See them,
yeah.
Even down in the Niagara Glen, you see them popping out of the rock. These are a thirsty tree.
It's funny that, there's a sense of tranquility when you're near a spring.
Yeah, there's definitely something going on with the cedars. There's some sort of symbiotic relationship happening.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm starting to freeze.
Okay, let's cut it short.
We better cut it short. So basically that's it.